Sign the papers. Daniel. I can't keep living like this. Emily's voice cracked through the air like lightning. Her hands shook slightly as she pushed the divorce papers across the kitchen table. The rain outside beat hard against the old window, but the storm inside that small apartment was louder. Daniel looked up slowly, his eyes calm, unreadable. The same woman who once promised forever now couldn't even meet his gaze. Is this really what you want? He asked softly. Emily's lips tightened. I deserve better, Daniel. I'm tired of struggling. You can't even fix the washing machine without worrying about money. I can't live poor forever. The word poor hung heavy in the room. She didn't know it, but the man sitting across from her was not poor. He was the hidden heir to one of the largest fortunes in the world, $50 billion in assets, properties, and businesses spread across continents. But Daniel didn't say a word. He simply nodded and reached for a pen. Then let's not waste more time. When he signed his name, Emily's chest rose with relief. She thought she was finally free to be with James, the man she had been secretly seeing for months. Her boss. Here, Laura. The man who promised her a life of comfort and luxury. As she left the apartment that night, she thought she had won. But she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because the man she had just divorced was about to become one of the richest men on earth. 3 months earlier, Daniel Miller's life seemed painfully ordinary. He woke up before sunrise every day to fix cars at a small auto shop in the corner of town. His hands were always greasy, his clothes old, and his back sore. He didn't complain. He was quiet, humble, and gentle, the kind of man who believed in simple happiness. Emily used to love that about him. When they first met, she said his calm heart made her feel safe. But as years passed, safety wasn't enough for her anymore. She wanted more money, more attention, more glamour. Daniel saw the change in her eyes. She stopped kissing him goodbye. She stopped asking about his day. She started working late nights and coming home smelling like perfume he'd never bought. He noticed everything. But he said nothing. Because he was waiting. 1 year ago, before his grandfather passed away, Daniel had received a letter with strange instructions. It said, Daniel, stay humble and unseen. The world doesn't need to know who you are yet. When the time is right, you will inherit what's yours, but only if you remain patient. His grandfather, Edward Miller, was a legend in the business world. Everyone believed Edward had died without an heir. No one knew about Daniel, the quiet grandson hidden from the public eye. Daniel followed his grandfather's last wish. He stayed small. He stayed silent. Until now. One night, Emily came home late again. Her hair was messy, her lipstick smudged, her perfume sharp and expensive. Daniel sat on the couch, waiting. Her phone buzzed, and the screen lit up with a message. James, can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. He'll never know. Her hand froze. She turned slowly, and saw Daniel's reflection in the dark window behind her. I know, he said quietly. Her breath caught. Know what? Everything. She tried to explain, but Daniel didn't want excuses. He just looked at her, sadness written in his eyes. If you're unhappy, Emily, you can leave, he said. She blinked. You're not going to fight for me. He smiled faintly. No. You've already made your choice. And that silence, that calm, emotionless silence broke her more than any shouting could have. She packed her things that night, her heart racing, tears smudging her makeup. She left behind her wedding ring, their photos, and the man she thought had nothing. Outside, a black car waited. James was there, smiling like he had already won. Emily climbed in, never looking back. Daniel stood by the window, watching the car disappear into the rain. His face showed no anger, no grief, just quiet acceptance. Then, his phone rang. Mr. Miller, said a deep voice on the other end. This is Attorney Miles from your grandfather's estate. I've been trying to reach you for months. The inheritance has been finalized. We need you in New York immediately. Daniel frowned. Inheritance? Yes, sir, the lawyer replied. Your grandfather left everything to you. The estate, the corporations, the trust funds, all of it. The estimated total value is $50 billion. The phone slipped slightly in his hand. 50 billion. Yes, sir. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. You are now one of the wealthiest men in the world. The line went quiet. Daniel looked at the empty doorway where Emily had stood minutes ago. The sound of the rain filled the silence. Then he whispered to himself, a slow smile forming on his lips. She divorced a poor man, he paused. But the world's about to meet the billionaire she left behind. He turned off the lights, packed a small bag, and walked out of the apartment without looking back. A new life had just begun. The plane touched down in New York just as the sun began to rise. For the first time in years, Daniel Miller felt the weight lift off his shoulders. He was still wearing his same old jeans and faded jacket, but inside, he carried a secret worth more than gold. Attorney Miles met him at the airport, holding a sleek black folder. "Mr. Miller, welcome home," he said with a polite smile. "Your grandfather's instructions were clear. You now control Miller Global Holdings. Every branch, every investment, every property, it's all yours." Daniel stared in silence. It didn't feel real. He had gone from fixing cars to owning entire companies overnight. But even as the lawyer spoke about numbers and power, Daniel wasn't thinking about wealth. He was thinking about Emily, the woman who couldn't stand to live poor, the woman who left before she knew the truth. He could still hear her words echoing in his mind, "I deserve better." Maybe she was right. Maybe now, he deserved better too. That same morning, Emily woke up in a high-rise apartment overlooking the city. James, her new husband, was already dressed in a designer suit, talking on the phone. "Invest everything," he said sharply. "The Millers are finished. Their company's been quiet for a year. Perfect time to move in." Emily smiled faintly as she poured her coffee. She liked this new life, expensive clothes, fancy dinners, champagne weekends. But sometimes, late at night, she thought of Daniel. The way he looked at her the night she left, calm, distant, almost as if he knew something she didn't. She quickly shook the thought away. "He's probably still fixing cars," she muttered to herself. James hung up and walked over. "We'll be billionaires soon, baby," he said, kissing her forehead. "Once Miller Global goes under, our company will take over their clients." Emily didn't know it yet, but the man she was mocking owned every single share of the company James was trying to destroy. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his grandfather's old office, a massive room with tall windows and shelves full of history. "Would you like to make a public announcement?" the lawyer asked. "The press is curious who the new heir is." Daniel shook his head. "Not yet. Let's keep my identity private for now. I want to understand what I'm dealing with." He opened the folder in front of him. Inside were names, CEOs, companies, board members. And right there, under one of the smaller branches, was a familiar name. James Carson, CEO of Carson Dynamics. Daniel leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "So," he whispered, "he works for me." It was almost too poetic. The man who stole his wife now unknowingly worked under the company Daniel controlled. For years, Daniel had stayed silent because of his grandfather's instructions. But now, every part of him wanted to break that silence, not out of greed, but out of justice. He wasn't going to hurt anyone. He just wanted the truth to show itself. And sometimes, the truth was the most painful punishment of all. 2 weeks later, Emily walked into James's office with excitement. "Babe, did you hear? Some mystery investor bought controlling shares in our partner company." James frowned. "Yeah, I heard. Whoever it is just took full authority over all our contracts. I don't know who they think they are, but I'll find out." That night, when James checked his email, he froze. The signature at the bottom of the investor's notice made his blood run cold. Daniel Miller, Chairman, Miller Global Holdings. He read it 3 times. Emily saw his face pale. "What's wrong?" James didn't answer. He just whispered, "That name. I know that name." Emily laughed nervously. It can't be the same Daniel. But the look on his face told her everything. Her coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The man she had left behind wasn't a poor mechanic anymore. He was her husband no more, but now, he was a billionaire with power over their entire world. And for the first time, Emily realized. She might have just walked out on the one man she should have never betrayed. The news spread across the city like wildfire. Miller Global Holdings announces its new chairman, Daniel Miller. Headlines filled every screen, every newspaper, every boardroom. But for two people sitting in a luxury penthouse downtown, that name felt like a thunderclap. Emily dropped her phone. Her hands trembled as she stared at the article on the glowing screen. There he was, her ex-husband, standing in a sharp black suit, giving a calm smile to the cameras. "Daniel Miller," she whispered. This can't be real." James grabbed the phone from her, reading the headline twice. His jaw tightened. "How the hell is this possible?" he muttered. "He was just a mechanic." Emily couldn't breathe. She felt her heart pounding in her chest, every beat heavier than the last. Daniel, the man she left, the man she humiliated, was now one of the richest men in the world. And worse, he owned the company James worked for. Across the city, Daniel sat in his new office, overlooking the skyline. He looked nothing like the man he once was. His hair was neatly trimmed, his suit perfectly fitted, his voice calm but firm. "Transfer all Carson Dynamics contracts to direct supervision," he said to his assistant. "Every project they handle must now be approved by me." "Yes, Mr. Miller," she replied. As she left the room, Daniel leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. But he couldn't deny the small part of him that wanted them to feel what he once felt: small, powerless, unseen. He still remembered the look in Emily's eyes when she said she was tired of being poor. That memory was carved deep inside him. Now she would finally understand what it meant to lose everything for money. A week later, Emily showed up at James's office with tears in her eyes. "James, what's happening?" she asked. "You said the deal would make us millions, but your staff is leaving, your investors are pulling out." He slammed his hand on the desk. "It's him. It's all Daniel. He's cutting us out of everything." Emily froze. "But he wouldn't do that." James glared at her. "Wouldn't he? You left him for me, remember? Maybe this is how he gets back at us." She shook her head. "He's not that kind of man." But as she said it, her voice cracked. Because deep down, she wasn't sure anymore. That night, alone in their penthouse, Emily searched for Daniel online. Every article showed his calm face, his powerful words, his quiet authority. She whispered to herself, "How did I not see who he really was?" She remembered the nights he'd come home tired but still smiled at her. The mornings he'd fix her shoes, make her breakfast, kiss her forehead. And she realized, he never needed money to make her feel rich. She was the one who threw that away. Now, as she looked at her reflection in the dark glass of the window, she saw what she had become, a woman who traded love for luxury, and lost both. The next morning, Daniel attended a high-profile event. Reporters crowded him with questions, flashing cameras, and microphones. "Mr. Miller, is it true your ex-wife is married to one of your former executives?" one asked boldly. Daniel paused for a moment. His calm eyes met the reporters. "Yes," he said softly. "That's true. Do you plan to respond to that publicly?" He gave a faint smile. "No. Some stories don't need words. Life has a way of telling them for us." The cameras clicked rapidly, his words replayed across every major network. Emily saw the interview that night. Her chest tightened. His voice was still gentle, no hatred, no bitterness. Just quiet strength. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "He's still the same Daniel." But deep inside, she knew something had changed forever. Back in his office, Daniel looked at an old photo, him and Emily on their wedding day, smiling under the sun. He placed it in a drawer and locked it away. He wasn't that man anymore. He had money now, power, respect, but he'd lost the one thing that once made him human: trust. And as he stared out at the glittering city below, He wondered if revenge didn't heal him, what would? Weeks passed, but Emily couldn't sleep. Every night she scrolled through headlines, watching Daniel's face appear everywhere. The humble billionaire. The silent heir who changed the business world. Each article felt like a knife to her heart. Meanwhile, James was losing control. Investors had abandoned his company, projects were cancelled, and rumors of bankruptcy swirled. Emily watched him crumble under the pressure. The man who had promised her the world was now barely keeping his head above water. And in her heart, a painful truth burned. She had traded the one man who truly loved her, for a man who only loved money. One morning, James stormed into the living room, his tie hanging loose and anger in his eyes. "Pack your things," he snapped. "We're leaving the city." "Leaving?" Emily asked, confused. "Why?" "Because it's over," he shouted. "Miller just bought out our company completely. He owns everything. We're finished." Emily's body went cold. Everything she had built, every luxury she had chased, it was gone. Within a week, they lost their penthouse, their cars, and the life she thought would last forever. James vanished soon after, leaving her nothing but a short message. "You wanted better. Go find it yourself." And just like that, Emily was alone. One rainy afternoon, she stood outside a tall glass building with the sign Miller Global Holdings gleaming at the top. She took a deep breath and walked inside. People turned to look as she entered the lobby, her hair messy, her eyes tired, her once expensive clothes now faded. When she reached the top floor, the secretary asked, "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Emily whispered. "But please, tell him it's Emily. He'll know." Moments later, Daniel stepped out of his office. For a second, time stopped. He looked just as calm as ever, stronger, sharper, confident. But when his eyes met hers, something inside both of them shifted. "Emily," he said quietly, "why are you here?" Her lips trembled. "I needed to see you. I needed to say I'm sorry." Daniel said nothing. She took a step closer. "You were right about everything. I thought money would make me happy. I thought love wasn't enough. But you were the only person who ever truly cared." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I lost everything, Daniel. I lost myself." He looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "You didn't lose everything," he said softly. "You just gave away what mattered most." Her voice broke. "Do you hate me?" Daniel shook his head. "No. I don't hate you. I just don't know you anymore." Emily's chest tightened. "Can you forgive me?" He sighed. "Forgiveness isn't the problem. Trust is." Silence filled the room. The sound of rain outside was the only thing between them. Then Daniel walked to his desk, picked up an envelope, and handed it to her. "Take this," he said. "There's enough money inside to start again. I don't want you to suffer." She stared at him in disbelief. "You'd still help me? After everything I did?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "You taught me something important, Emily. Money can change your life, but forgiveness changes your heart. I don't want to carry anger anymore." Her hands shook as she took the envelope. "You're still the man I fell in love with," she whispered. Daniel looked at her gently. "No," he said. "I'm the man you walked away from. Don't make that mistake again with anyone else." He turned away, and Emily understood. There was no going back. She left his office quietly, her tears mixing with the rain outside. That night, Daniel stood by the window, watching the city lights. He had everything, money, power, respect, but his heart felt strangely empty. He thought about what his grandfather had written in that letter. The true test of wealth is not how much you have, but how much peace you can keep when you lose it. And Daniel finally understood. His inheritance wasn't the money. It was wisdom. 1 year later, a small auto repair shop reopened under new ownership. The sign above it read, "Miller Auto, built with love." Daniel visited one morning. Inside, he found Emily working there, greeting customers with a smile. She looked different, calmer, humbler, happier. They locked eyes for a moment. She smiled softly, and he nodded back before walking away. No words.
No promises.
Just quiet peace. Sometimes in life, we chase the wrong things, money, status, approval, only to realize too late that love, loyalty, and peace were worth far more. Have you ever walked away from something real, thinking you'd find something better? Do you believe people can truly change after betrayal? If you were in Daniel's place, would you forgive, or would you let them face their karma? Tell me in the comments, what would you do? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just Daniel's story. It's a mirror for all of us who've been broken, betrayed, or blinded by pride. And a reminder that sometimes, losing what we thought we wanted leads us straight to what we needed all along.